Hello, and welcome to IKonic 3D Studios, where I am the overseeing voice in the hands of these models. As today you'll see me painting Power from CA3D. Here's a clip.
これで貸し借りなしじゃな。
あれ、いろいろ言いたいことあるけど。
改めてよろしくな。にゃと思うねるぞ。
こんなもん。
Doesn't she seem like an absolute joy to be around? I would think so. Overall, I believe that this model came out absolutely fantastic. CA3D did a fantastic job sculpting it, as you can see through these transitions. I can't wait to paint this one, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys the results at the end of the video. Future videos I'll have more describing what I'm actually doing and showing print process, but for this as the first video on the channel, I'm just going to go over a brief synopsis of what we actually do out here. So here in the first situation, we got the base sitting in my little spray booth that I have outside for all the spray paint. I'm just using a basic Rust-Oleum primer, and then combined with a black primer thereafter to get that nice dark rich base that you want to start with. These are just basic can spray paints that you can pick up at any store for $5-6. Nothing special, but they get the job done. A lot of people like to use some bigger Citadel based cans, but I find this stuff to work the way that it needs to. Here I'm using that same Rust-Oleum primer on all the body parts. It honestly does what it needs to, and as long as you're letting the coach dry evenly, you'll have no issues. I usually give it a good hour, maybe 2 hours to fully dry, but you can get away with 30 minutes if you're in a pinch, or sooner if you use a heat gun. I just prefer to let it sit, especially if I'm not in a rush to get anything going. But if I am, yeah, I'll pull out the heat gun, hit it real quick, not too close because you can bubble it, and let it sit there, dry for a couple minutes, and then I'll get underway on painting. Just make sure you don't use a brush on it because you'll definitely smear that primer. On to honestly the easiest part of this entire thing. I'm going to use a Vallejo white ink to lay down my Zenithal highlight on the base. Now, I usually don't have to go crazy on Zenithals, but in this situation, I'm going to highlight kind of where I want the reds and the skulls to actually be highlighted a little bit, keeping the darks a little black in the back there, and just throwing this through my airbrush and letting it rip. I'm also going to start applying this Zenithal to the any of the reds and the blood. All these staff parts are going to be red, as well as any of the face pieces that are going to actually need highlighting, as well as any of the other body parts. I will add, usually you want to make sure that you do the Zenithal with the base completed and the whole model together, but my spray booth honestly isn't too tall, and this model ends up being absolutely gigantic. So if you're in a case where you don't have the room, you can do piece by piece, but just imagine where the light's going to hit each model. That's your best basis. I would use the light on top or an LED on the side to kind of get an understanding of where that light's going to hit the model so you can highlight in those specific areas. Alright, onto the base here. We're going to pull out a Vallejo natural gray, and I'm just going to put this through my airbrush about 75-50, a little thicker. Make sure that all of the grays are getting highlighted. It will cover up the Zenithal pretty much throughout here, but in the end, it's exactly the gray that you want, and I didn't have any clogging with this one. Usually I have a little bit here and there, but Florida humidity, what can you do? Next up, I'm going to start the dry brushing, just pulling out a Vallejo white, just a plain white from their model color series. This will get most of the highlights on the rocks that you want. You're going to start really painting this to look like a basic rock. Make sure you dry off most of that paint off the brush using some kind of microfiber or paper towel. It's what I prefer, and then I'll just start going to ham on it. These pretty cheap brushes that I just picked up on Amazon, but they do the job, and as long as you don't have too much paint carrying on them, you'll get the job and the look that you're actually trying to get. I'd say this came out decently on its first playthrough, but I've ended up going through this a couple times after recording this clip to kind of get the results that I was looking for. Alright, up next I'm going to use everybody's favorite, Deck Tan. I'll pull out a smaller dry brush and start going through over some of the smaller highlights, really push them in. I had to go over this 2 or 3 times to really push the highlights that I was looking for to give that offset from the white, but ended up coming out exactly how I was looking to make this rock look, and I can't complain. It's a rock. As long as it looks like a rock, you're good to go. Next up is a paint that's been very hard to find in stock at any of their stores. Is Citadel's Dragonov Nightshade. I put this through the airbrush, roughly 20 psi. Start to give those bluish dark tones to bring back some of that darkness and shadow in the actual rock. You usually want to do this just to give your rock a little bit more of a life-like look, and usually turns out exactly how you want. You might have to do 2 or 3 coats, but in the end, it's kind of worth it. As you can see here, this is kind of what I meant. I went through with Deck Tan again with a slightly larger dry brush and just started hitting some of those details over again once I applied that Nightshade from Citadel. It honestly, I went over it again, here again, and I just kind of brought out the depth of the shadows a little bit more, trying to really draw out that all-natural look before I start applying the white for the blood effect that I'm looking for. Alright, transitioning over to the start of the skulls, I'm going to pull out a Vallejo Game Color Bone White. This is the perfect base for any of your skull-based applications. I can't complain, this is the absolute perfect color. I'm going to mix this down to a pretty watery base and go over it a couple times just to kind of get that effect that I want to, and hit it with a heat gun and keep on going. It's about 3 coats of that bone white. Told you it comes out really good. As long as you keep applying coats and make sure all the grays and darks are actually applied right, it'll come out the perfect way. And next up, I'm going to apply this fill-in ink. And man, I gotta say, this stuff is an absolute cheat code for any skull base or rust or anything. I picked this up about a year ago, and man, I'll leave a link down in the description for this stuff. No sponsorship, no nothing. This stuff is truly magic. It does exactly what you're looking for with hardly any other After Effects after. It came out amazing. I probably did about 2 full coats of this after a full dry, and man, I'm not kidding. Wait for the results here and you'll be shocked. I did pull out a Vallejo, just standard black from their monocolor series, to start filling in the eyes a little bit, give them a little bit more depth from the front point of view of this, as well as their little nose cavities. And it'll give you that nice shadow that you're looking for, where you're looking at it from the front, but you can still see that there's definitely depth to the shadows of those skulls. Now for the absolute most pain in the rear part of this entire print was painting the blood effects on the base. And let me tell you, this literally took me like 3, maybe 4 hours to completely do exactly what I was trying to get with the shading. This part took a long time, but I'm just using a standard Vallejo white as a base color. You always want to make sure that you put a white or very light color before you put any reds on a base, because they will not show up red and they will just show up very dark, if not sometimes black. And after about an hour of doing all this white, about 2 coats fully, here we go. Here's the finished base in all white. And then I'm just going to start moving on to our blood red effect. This I'm just using Citadel's Blood of the Blood God. I'm going to go over this probably 2-3 times at most in some areas to really bring out that depth. But you can see with that white base, man, it's red. And that's exactly what you're looking for. You can see where I did a little test with 1 shade of white and it did not come out the way that I was looking for. Always make sure you do a white base on any of your red applications and it's going to come out the exact way that you're looking for. And after about a good painstakingly 2 hours, we have a almost finished base here as I apply the final coats that I'm looking for on the bottom pieces here. And dude, this thing came out looking really good. I'm not going to apply the blood splatter effects or anything towards the end of the video, but I did a little drainage, little blood streaks going down to kind of give that effect. They weren't modeled into it or even in the renders from CA, but I felt like it was a little just to be able to do this. From here, I'm going to pull out my gloss polyurethane from Vallejo. This is a fantastic gloss, but when I'm doing such a large scale of this, I'll usually just soak my brush in some water and just dip my brush straight into the container and go over all this blood effect to give it that glossy look that I'm looking for. I'll say as well, make sure that you give these coats, if you're going to do more than 1 or 2, some good time to actually dry, because if you try going over it with a brush again for a second coat and it's not completely dry, you're going to have a fun time reapplying all that white just to have to go back through all the red. But here's the finished product. It came out exactly what I was looking for, glossy red, bloody effect. And sliding over to the airbrush booth, we're going to pull out a Luftwaffe Uniform Gray from Vallejo. I'm going to be using this as the base coat for the sleeves and the actual jacket that Power is wearing in this scene. It's the closest thing to a darkish black that you're going to get, as well as a really good value in gray. Not too gray, not too black. It's kind of the perfect in between, and it'll really highlight what I'm trying to do in this. And you can see here, I'm going to pick up that Luftwaffe again and kind of fill it in the wrinkles in the pants. I was going to dry brush this, and I would advise the smarter option is to get like a grayish, the same as this Luftwaffe, on dry brush this in if you're going to do it, but I kind of preferred the airbrush look. Came out a little cleaner than I thought it would. Next up, I'm going to pull out a Vallejo Game Colors Off-White. This is the color I'm going to end up using as a dry brush on the shirt. I wanted to do a dry brush not only because it's easier after I already did the jacket itself, but you're going to see at the end of this that the off-white gives it that nice color that you're trying to go for without actually using a base white. And for this, I'm just going to pull out that same Vallejo black. I'm just going to use this for the actual tie going down the front of her jacket and shirt there. I only had to do 1 coat of this, and as long as you apply it thickly and smoothly, it'll come out exactly what you're looking for. Slow is the name of the game here. I have it pretty sped up so you guys can see, but just make sure you angle your brush the way that you're trying to make sure you get all those creases down the side and make sure you don't get any white on the actual tie itself. And you can see here at the end, it looks fantastic. And here we go again. We're going to swing over to the airbrush booth and we're going to pull out our skin tones for Power. I'm going to start out with a squid pink, and I mixed about these all 50-50. As you can see, these are the highlight tones that you're going to use for any skin tone. And I'm going to use these for almost any model that I do. I just change the mid-tones and some of the highlight tones to achieve the actual look that I'm looking for. And I'm going to go over every single piece of skin that has this. I'm going to apply a nice coat of the squid pink and go on from there. Continue on, I'm going to use a Game Colors red ink. This is going to be for your highlight tones and your shadows. You're not going to go over the entire thing, but you're going to want to make sure that you get all the shadows in depth. This is really going to add effects to crevices and armpits and necklines, chins, stuff that usually should hide a little bit more depth of color. This is exactly what you're going to want to go for. Next up, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Brown Rose. This is going to be my mid-tone and starting tone for the actual skin colors. And next up, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Basic Skin Tone. This is as basic as you can go with skin tones. It's going to give you that nice natural look without going over too much. I'm going to kind of use this as my highlight tone. As you can see, I'm kind of pointing at an angle so you can not underspray on the chins and stuff, and you're keeping that depth of shadow that you're really trying to achieve with your models. Next up is something that I recently discovered scrolling on Instagram here and there. I start applying a yellow ink into some just basic little mouthwash cups. I'm gonna get this pretty good consistency, not too much ink, not too much yellow, but I'm also gonna be doing washes from Vallejo's Game Wash series of red and blue. These are gonna be your realistic skin tones that kind of give you that shimmer / shine on models. It gives it that depth and overall brings some liveliness back into the actual skin tones. When you're airbrushing skin tones, usually they start to get a little washed out, a little bit, I don't want to say opaque, but it starts to bring the character back to life when you start adding these washes of yellow, then blue, then red, especially in that order. It's going to bring back the overall veinage, it's going to bring back the color that you're trying to achieve, and it'll kind of add a little bit of a shimmer to the actual skin tones. Again here, I'm going to pull out that Blood of the Blood God from Citadel, and I'm going to start applying the actual effects for the blood on the hands and the face. She has in the render these two little marks going down her face, but I'm also going to start applying the actual brush effect, where I just load up the brush, grab my airbrush, and spray it all over the model. This is kind of the more fun part of this model, is just applying the blood splatter all over the place. Next order of business, I'm just going to pull out Vallejo's masking so I can start actually painting in the hair here. With some basic, just Vallejo white in my brush, I masked off the legs so I can start painting in with the feet, because the actual shoes on her are all just white in the renders as well as the show. For the start of the hair, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Game Color Dirty Orange. I find this to be the best basis for most blonde-haired characters, especially anime or video game bases. It gives it that nice dark yellowish look without going too yellow. In the video, it shows a little bit more yellow. But next up, I pull out a combination of light yellow and buff from Vallejo. And this is really going to start to solidify that blondish color that I'm trying to achieve for her model. And next up, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Game Color Off-White here. This is going to be for some highlight, upper part of the tones. You don't want to go crazy with this, just kind of blend it in, give it a good look. This is going to give you that real blonde effect that you're trying to achieve. After pulling off the masking, I'm going to pull out some Pro Acrylic Coal Black. And honestly, this is as black can possibly be, and you have to be careful with this. I'm going to start applying this for the actual eyelashes as well as kind of a highlight tone before I start doing the eyes. Got to be very careful with these brush strokes and work at it as slow as possible. I have this sped up about 500%, so just take your time with it. This takes practice, and even I'm still getting it underneath my belt. Nobody's perfect with this, but the more you practice, the more comfortable you're going to feel with the brush. Next up, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Nocturna set. This is the highlight white skin tone. I'm going to use this for the actual white part of the eyes. This gives it that nice white tone without being too white, but giving it a little bit of depth. For the pupils, I just used Pro Acrylics Black again. I had that left over on my wet palette. And then for the actual midtones of the eyes, to create the orangish eye that she has, I used Vallejo's Game Color Fiery Orange. And then I set the pupil in black, and then I went over it and added the specular highlight, which is just a basic white. Moving on to the skin tones for the lips, I'm just going to pull out a Vallejo Rosa Salmon. Pretty watered down. I'm going to do 2 or 3 coats of this to get the look that I'm looking for. It's pretty natural on her character. And after that, I'm going to pull out a gloss varnish and go over her eyes. Starting on the shoes here, I'm going to pull out Vallejo's Nocturna Scarlet Red, I believe. I'm just going to go over this with a pretty fine brush. I think this was probably a 3-0 brush. I'm just going to go over this pretty slowly to achieve the actual look that I'm looking for. Go over the laces a couple times, make sure that everything's filled in on all the sides and corners to give it that depth. And from here, I'm just going to put the legs and feet into the actual base so they're out of the way. Next up, I'm going to start doing the Blood Angels Red from Citadel on the scythe. I'm just going to brush this in pretty thick. Let it dry a little bit, make sure that it's dry before you do any additional coats because you will smear this paint. From here, I'm just going to start final assembly. Usually I wait to the end to do the full assembly of this model, but I had some parts laying around and I just wanted to make sure I got it all together. Plus, you can see that I accidentally dropped the top of this model and broke the keyhole off, which I'll just fill in with some UV resin and it'll be good to go. But here I'm going to start with that blood of the blood god and start doing the splatter effect all over the rest of the body here. And once I start super gluing down here, you can see I'm going to put the head on and it really starts to piece this model together. It's definitely a pretty large model in scale, and I kind of wanted to get this off my workbench, and plus my fiance has been bugging me to get this one painted for a while. This one's actually for her. Here I'm going to pull out some more of that gloss polyurethane from Vallejo and just start adding that glossy effect to get that blood effect that I'm looking for all over this model. I'm pretty close to calling this model completed at this point. These are kind of the final touches that I'm trying to achieve. And here's kind of towards the end of the video. I'm putting the final piece into her arm sleeve there, and I can pretty much call this model done. I gotta say, CA3D did a fantastic job with this power model. My fiance is more than thrilled to get this one on her shelf. If you guys liked what you saw in this video, please consider leaving a comment for future suggestions. I'm gonna really read any comments that people put down there so I can apply those to future videos. Please subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.